They thought she was lost. Maybe in the wrong building. Designer heels. Blazer sharp enough to turn heads. Every soldier in that room paused because surely she wasn't one of them. "Are you here to visit someone, miss?" The sergeant smirked. She smiled, then silently laid her ID and a file on the desk. 3 Purple Hearts. 16 combat deployments. 2 Bronze Stars. The room went dead silent. But that was just the beginning. Because what she did next changed how they saw every soldier who didn't look like one. Stay with us. This isn't just a story about war. It's about perception, silence, and a quiet kind of power that doesn't need to shout to be heard. It was just another Tuesday morning at the Regional Military Recruitment Office. The hum of fluorescent lights, the clacking of keyboards, the low murmur of voices echoing off the beige linoleum floors. Staff Sergeant Mark Tolson had his usual cup of lukewarm coffee in hand, his eyes flicking between his inbox and the young recruits fidgeting in the waiting chairs. Then the door opened, and everything stopped. Heels clicked sharp, deliberate. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. A woman had just entered. But not just any woman. She looked like someone who belonged on the cover of a luxury magazine, not standing under a faded recruitment poster. Long, sleek blonde hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail. Impeccably tailored black blazer. Dark jeans hugging every curve just right. Her makeup? Flawless. Her posture? Regal. And those heels? They echoed through the room like a drumroll announcing something no one could quite grasp yet. Tolson blinked. He instinctively stood up. "Can I help you find someone, ma'am?" he asked, forcing a polite smile, his tone teetering between confusion and condescension. She smiled back, warm but unreadable. "I'm here for a records request." "Of course," he replied, already reaching for the civilian form. "Are you looking for your spouse's file? A sibling, maybe? We'll just need some ID to verify." She interrupted, gently, without breaking eye contact. "Here's mine." And she handed over a military ID. Tolson accepted it with a half-curious glance. Then he froze. "Captain Rebecca Hale, United States Army." His hand paused mid-motion. Around the room, several of the young Marines subtly leaned forward, their curiosity piqued. One of them whispered to his buddy, "No way she's active duty?" "She's like a 10 out of 10, the friend murmured. Rebecca didn't react. Her smile never wavered. She was used to this. "You're active?" Tolson asked, double-checking the card. "Yes," she said simply. "I just returned from deployment." Still stunned, Tolson gestured toward a seat. "Right, yes. Please have a seat, Captain. What can we help you with?" Rebecca reached into her bag and pulled out a thick manila folder. "There may be a discrepancy in my file. I'm being considered for promotion next week, and I want to ensure everything's in order." Tolson opened the folder. He expected a few outdated memos, maybe a missing form. What he saw instead made his hands go still. 3 Purple Hearts. 2 Bronze Stars. 1 with a Valor device. 16 combat deployments. He glanced up, his voice barely above a whisper. "Ma'am." But before he could speak again, one of the younger Marines, barely 19, piped up. "No offense, ma'am, but you don't look like someone who's seen that much action." That did it. The room shifted. Not just in tone, but in air pressure, like something was about to happen. Like the oxygen itself was waiting for her reply. Rebecca turned to the Marine, still smiling. "You're not wrong," she said. "I've heard that before." The young Marine looked momentarily confused. Rebecca stood. Her presence, though calm, seemed to grow larger, like gravity was bending around her. "I was on the cover of Cosmopolitan once," she said casually. 2016. Article titled, "Beauty and Brains. America's Most Inspiring Women." The young Marine blinked. "What the magazine didn't mention," she continued, stepping closer, "is that photo was taken 3 weeks after I returned from my 8th deployment. 9 months in the field. I'd lost 15 pounds, hadn't worn makeup in so long I forgot how. But they wanted the ideal image of a female soldier, so they made me look like someone I barely recognized." The Marine had no words. Rebecca turned back to Tolson and took a slow, measured breath. "You see, Sergeant," she said, "the hardest part about being underestimated isn't the assumptions. It's the restraint. The choice to let it pass. To let them believe what they want, while you carry the weight of your silence. Her eyes swept the room. Every recruit had gone quiet. The master sergeant in the corner had even turned down the volume on his radio. But, she added gently, I didn't come here to prove a point. I came here because I've earned the right to sit at the table, and the paperwork needs to reflect that. Tolson nodded slowly, still absorbing the information. She returned to her seat, smoothing down her blazer, calm as ever. And in that moment, despite the silence, everyone in that room knew. She wasn't just a soldier. She was something far more dangerous. She was exactly what a real soldier looks like, but no one ever sees coming. There was a unmistakable moment when the atmosphere inside the recruitment office changed. Staff Sergeant Tolson felt it in his spine. The shift from polite interest to quiet reverence. The kind of silence that doesn't ask for attention, but demands it. Captain Rebecca Hale sat back in her chair, as if she hadn't just shattered the assumptions of every single person in the room. No dramatic speeches, no outrage. Just a calm professionalism that somehow made the entire office feel insufficient. Tolson leaned forward, unable to stop himself. Ma'am, this paperwork. These citations. 16 combat deployments. Rebecca nodded once. Syria was the last one. Got back 4 weeks ago. He thumbed through the pages again, reading line after line of action reports and decorations. His voice dropped even lower. Bronze Star with Valor. Afghanistan. You pulled wounded soldiers from a burning vehicle under fire. It was a long day, she replied simply. The simplicity of her words felt heavier than any war story. At the edge of the room, Master Sergeant Gerald Whitaker stirred in his chair. At 52, Whitaker had seen more than most 3 tours in Iraq, 1 in Somalia. He'd been watching the entire exchange quietly, arms folded, face unreadable. He stood now slowly. Captain Hale, he said, his deep voice steady. That Bronze Star citation Operation Iron Dagger. 73rd Airborne. Yes, Master Sergeant, she said, finally turning toward him. You know the op? Whitaker's eyes softened. I was there. Different unit, same FOB. We heard about someone going back into a burning MRA-3 Timesto pull-out casualties. A beat passed. They said that soldier got hit on the 3rd trip. Shrapnel. To the face. Rebecca didn't speak. They said she should have lost her eye. But she finished the job anyway. Tolson swallowed hard. Without a word, Rebecca reached into her purse. She took out a small mirror, opened it briefly, then handed it to Whitaker. He tilted the mirror toward her. And for the first time, everyone saw it. A fine, almost invisible scar ran from the corner of her mouth to just below her ear masked with expertly applied makeup. The kind of detail no one notices unless they're looking for it. Plastic surgery, she said. 3 operations. The VA has excellent surgeons. But if you know where to look, it's still there. The room remained hushed. You could have stayed home after that, Whitaker murmured. Nobody would have blamed you. I know, she replied. But the mission wasn't over. Tolson sat back, exhaling slowly. He felt like he was seeing color in a room that had always been grayscale. I need to ask, ma'am, he said. Why didn't you correct me sooner? When I thought you were just a civilian. Rebecca's smile returned. But this time, it was tinged with something bittersweet. Because it happens all the time, Sergeant, she said. They see the hair, the blazer, the heels, and they assume. It's easier, usually, to let them think what they want. The younger Marine from earlier, Private Connor Petty, according to his nameplate, shifted in his chair. The bravado from before had drained from his face. He looked young now, ashamed. Ma'am, he said awkwardly. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I was just... It's all right, Private, Rebecca interrupted gently. But let me ask you something. He straightened. Yes, ma'am. What do you think makes a real soldier? He blinked, surprised. A courage? Discipline? Willingness to serve? Good textbook answers. She nodded. What else? Marksmanship. Physical fitness. Tactical knowledge. Also good. She leaned forward slightly, eyes steady. What about experience? Yes, ma'am. Rebecca stood again, walking slowly toward the posters lining the wall, glossy images of young soldiers in desert gear, standing tall with steely eyes and perfect posture. She stopped in front of one. "This," she said, pointing at the image, "is what people think a soldier should look like. Rugged, masculine, intense, probably male. Certainly not someone in mascara." She turned to face the room. "But war isn't a photo. It's not a movie. It's blood and screams and smoke and chaos. It's crawling through dust with someone else's blood on your hands, trying to keep them breathing. It doesn't care how you look." Tolson stared at her, stunned. This wasn't a speech. It was the truth, delivered with the calm certainty of someone who had lived it. Rebecca reached for her phone and pulled up an image. "This was me in Kandahar, 2018, she said, holding up the screen. The woman in the photo was barely recognizable. Caked in dust and dried blood, her eyes hollowed from exhaustion. But alive. Fiercely alive. Another photo, Syria, 2023. She was loading wounded civilians into a medevac bird. Hair soaked in sweat. Hands bloodied but steady. Then the last photo. Her in dress uniform. 3 months ago. Standing straight as a general pinned the bronze star to her chest. Same woman, she said. Same soldier. Same warrior. The only difference is the background. There were no words. No rebuttals. Only quiet realization. Finally, Master Sergeant Whitaker broke the silence. "So why are you here, Captain? You didn't come just to update a file." Rebecca exhaled. "Because I'm up for promotion to major," she said. "And next week, I'll stand in front of a board that doesn't know me, doesn't know this record. And they'll look at me and wonder if I have what it takes." Whitaker's brow furrowed. "You've done more than enough to earn it." Rebecca offered a tired smile. "That's the thing, Master Sergeant. In this uniform, sometimes even enough isn't enough." The hum of the fluorescent lights faded into the background as if even the building itself was holding its breath. Captain Rebecca Hale had just revealed more than a war record. She had cracked open the assumptions in the room like a rifle shot in dead silence. And just when the tension began to settle, the office door opened. A gust of hot air swept in from the parking lot, and with it a presence. Colonel Matthew Ashford stepped through the doorway. He didn't need to announce himself. The silver oak leaf on his collar, the crisp uniform, and the commanding presence were enough to make everyone in the room snap to attention instinctively. "As you were," he said, nodding. Then his gaze landed on Rebecca. He blinked. "Captain Hale?" She stood. "Good morning, sir." Ashford looked around, noting the unusually hushed office, the open folder on Sergeant Tolson's desk, and the stunned expressions on half a dozen recruits. "What brings you here, Captain?" Rebecca replied evenly, "Just checking on some discrepancies in my record, sir." Ashford's eyes narrowed. "Mind if I take a look?" Tolson instinctively slid the folder toward him. Ashford picked it up, thumbing through the first few pages. His expression shifted from neutral curiosity to furrowed disbelief. "Jesus, Rebecca, I knew you were good. But this..." He looked up slowly. 3 purple hearts? 2 bronze stars? 16 combat tours. She remained silent. He continued reading aloud. "Valor device. Airborne wings. Ranger tab. Combat action badge. You've done more in 10 years than most officers do in a lifetime." He paused, setting the file down. "I've been in the Army for 28 years, Ashford said. "And I don't have half the combat citations you do." There it was again, the truth no one wanted to admit, said plainly by a man with stars in his Rolodex. Rebecca straightened her posture. "Sir, may I ask you something candidly?" Ashford nodded. "Always. If you saw me walking down the street in civilian clothes, what would you assume?" Ashford didn't answer right away. His jaw tightened. "Honestly, I probably think you were a model, or someone from corporate, not someone who's seen combat." "And if I was in uniform?" His silence spoke volumes. "Exactly," she said, voice soft. "Even in the uniform, people doubt. They don't see the miles, the fire, the pain. They see lipstick and heels and wonder if I belong." Colonel Ashford exhaled, then turned to the room. His voice grew firm, commanding. "Let me tell you something about Captain Hale." Every eye locked onto him. 2 years ago, I was still a lieutenant colonel stationed at FOB Phoenix. We had intel about a high-value target coordinating attacks against Allied convoys. It was a high-risk op, the kind with a 50-50 shot of coming home. He looked at Rebecca. She was the first to volunteer. Gasps rippled through the room. The same woman they'd assumed was a civilian? A socialite? Ashford continued. She wasn't reckless. She volunteered because she knew that target area better than anyone. She studied terrain maps like her life depended on it. And it did. Private Petty leaned forward, pale now, eyes wide. The mission was a success, Ashford said. We captured the target. No American lives lost. But what the report doesn't say is what happened on the exfil. He paused. Our convoy was ambushed. IED disabled the lead vehicle. We took fire from 3 directions. Chaos. Screaming. Fire. And in the middle of it Captain Hale ran across 50 meters of open ground. Under fire. Not once. Not twice. But 3 times. He looked around the office, letting the weight of that sentence sink in. She pulled out 3 wounded soldiers. One of them was my radio operator. He wouldn't be here today if not for her. The room was silent. Even the phones had stopped ringing, as if the whole world had gone mute. Captain Hale's face showed no pride, no smugness, just a quiet, steady resolve. Ashford turned back to her. And now you're up for promotion. Yes, sir, she said. 3rd time. Not anymore, he replied. The board was moved up. It's happening this afternoon. And I'm the senior officer on the panel. She blinked. This afternoon? 1,400 hours. And I'll tell you what I told the other Swiri, not reviewing hairstyles or cheekbones. We're reviewing service. Leadership. Courage. He held up her file. And this speaks louder than anything you could say in that room. Rebecca inhaled slowly. Her heart didn't race. It beat calmly, like it had in every mission briefing before the storm. Thank you, sir. Ashford stepped closer, lowering his voice. They won't see the heels, or the lipstick. They'll see the warrior. Then he turned to leave. Before he did, he looked over his shoulder at Tolson. Sergeant, take care of this officer. She's one of the best we've got. And just like that, he was gone. For a moment, no one moved. Then Tolson stood and walked over to Rebecca. Ma'am, his voice cracked. I owe you an apology. She tilted her head. I assumed, and treated you like a guest, not a fellow soldier. Rebecca smiled. You're not the first. You won't be the last. I'm supposed to know better, he said quietly. She looked him in the eye. Knowing better starts with seeing differently. The door closed behind Colonel Ashford with a quiet click, but the impact of his words still echoed through the recruitment office like aftershocks from a quake. No one moved for a long moment. Captain Rebecca Hale sat down again, not with pride, but with purpose. Her folder sat closed now. It no longer needed to speak for her. She had already spoken loudest by never raising her voice. Staff Sergeant Tolson was the first to break the silence. Captain, may I ask something? Rebecca nodded. When you walked in here today, you knew exactly what people would assume. So why wear the blazer? The heels? You could have worn your uniform. Let the bars and ribbons speak first. She smiled faintly, almost wistfully. Because the uniform doesn't always protect you from judgment, she said. And sometimes it amplifies it. Everyone listened closely. I used to try to blend in, she continued, her voice soft but sure. Cut my hair short. No makeup. No earrings. I thought if I looked like them, maybe I'd be accepted. Maybe they'd stop questioning whether I belonged. She leaned forward slightly, her hands resting gently on the folder in her lap. But I realized something. I wasn't sent to war to become invisible. I wasn't given responsibility so I could shrink myself to fit someone else's idea of what a leader looks like. Private Petty, the recruit who had mocked her earlier, fidgeted in his seat, clearly wrestling with the weight of his earlier words. Rebecca noticed. Private, she said gently. You're not the enemy here. You said what you've been taught to believe. He looked up. Ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I know, she said. But that's how it changes. One person at a time, recognizing their blind spots and choosing to look again. Then she turned to the room. You want to know what the hardest part of being underestimated is? They waited. It's not the disrespect, or the silence, or even the looks. It's the temptation to fight the wrong fight, to shout, prove, argue. But that doesn't change minds. That just exhausts you. She stood now, straightening her blazer. Her voice carried a different weight, softer, but more commanding than anything shouted. I stopped fighting for approval. I started leading for results. She walked toward the door, then paused. There's a young woman in here yesterday, she said to Tolson. Asked about officer training. Nervous. Doubt in her voice. Tolson nodded. Yes, ma'am. She was worried she wasn't military material. Rebecca turned back, eyes calm. She reminded me of someone I used to be. Tell her this different doesn't mean less. It means needed. Can you do that for me? Tolson straightened. Absolutely, ma'am. Rebecca gave him one last nod, then opened the door and stepped into the sunlight. Her heels clicked on the linoleum floor one last time. But now no one mistook that sound for fashion. They all knew it for what it truly was. The sound of a warrior walking with purpose. 3 months later. It was a quiet Friday afternoon when the doors of the recruitment office swung open again. Tolson glanced up from his desk, then stood at attention. Major Rebecca Hale entered in full dress uniform. Her new rank insignia gleamed. Her rows of ribbons caught the light like medals in a museum. The room fell respectfully silent. This time, no one mistook her for anyone's wife or sister or assistant. Everyone knew who she was. And more importantly, what she was. Rebecca didn't say much. Just came to drop off a few mentorship brochures for new female recruits and ask how the young woman from before was doing. She's finishing her first semester at OCS, Tolson said proudly. Rebecca smiled. Good. Tell her I'm rooting for her. As she turned to go, Tolson stepped forward. Major, one more thing. She looked back. I've been looking at every person who walks through that door a little differently since that day. I'm glad, she said. And I think we all needed that lesson. Her smile deepened. Lessons stick better when they're quiet. She left then, disappearing into the golden sunlight. Later that evening, Tolson sat at his desk long after the recruits had gone. Master Sergeant Whitaker walked over, his arms folded. You're still thinking about her, he said. Tolson didn't deny it. You know, Whitaker added. We always say we honor the uniform. But that day taught me something. Tolson looked up. What's that? We don't honor the uniform. Not really. We honor the people inside it when we actually bother to see them. He left those words hanging in the air, heavy but true. Greatness doesn't need to shout. It walks quietly and lets truth carry the weight. At the end of the day, Major Rebecca Hale reminded everyone that being underestimated is often the greatest weapon a warrior can carry, because when the moment comes, the impact is seismic. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She didn't perform. She simply was. And when she walked away, she didn't leave silence. She left respect.